So I talk a lot about nosing your bourbon and do a little education, a little 101 on how to begin to look at this spirit. Let's understand what it is. Bourbon has a very simple mash bill, a very simple recipe, and it can either be flavored with a wheat, which is what we do at Garrison Brothers, or it could be flavored with a rye. And those grains, a rye grain being a much spicier note, but we always liked a little bit sweeter profile. And then I talk about mouthing and really chewing your bourbon. And again, that's where you put that little bit on your the tip of your tongue. You let that melt away, almost like an M&M would in your mouth. And basically, you're letting your mouth start to do its work, starting to break that spirit down. So as you're taking your first sip and your second sip, your palate is ready to understand what a high proof bourbon is. And I promise, any woman who walks through those steps with me and really lets that spirit be a part of the full experience, every time I get, oh, wow, I can't believe I'm having a sip of bourbon. And it's really fun.
Welcome to Winning at Work, the podcast for foodies, founders, and food and beverage professionals. You know, if you wanted to discover a new brand, a new food or beverage to try, there are literally thousands of companies out there. It is very difficult to do that. That's why we curate the different, the better, and the special brands here each and every week on the podcast, so you don't have to do the heavy lifting. You can just discover the new food or beverage that you want to try. If you're a founder and you're looking to connect with other like-minded executives, we make that very easy as we build our community. And if you just work in the food and beverage industry and you're looking for fresh inspiration, we have that here in spades. This podcast is sponsored by Temple. Temple can help your brand attract consumers so you can drive that product off the shelf. Temple can help you attract buyers and distributors so you can expand your retail footprint or expand into retail and or food service. And Temple attracts employees to your great company with your purpose and your mission. Let that sell. Let that be what attracts. We can show you how to do that. Just click on the Attract button in the show notes for a free consultation with me and discover how you can start winning at work. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Winning at Work. It is Tony, and I am so excited because, you know, in the food business, we do notice there are a lot of men who are running companies. We also know a lot of products are geared toward men, but it's kind of interesting when I have found the first legal bourbon distillery outside of Kentucky, 4-time American Micro Whiskey of the Year winner. I've got Nancy Garrison, the co-founder of Garrison Brothers Distillery.
I am so honored to be here.
Welcome down.
Thank you, Tony.
Well, I did a live stream, and we'll link it in the show notes. And you were just kind of laughing a moment ago because I'm going to tell you, this bottle is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's got this beautiful honey yellow wax seal and all the logoing. And I just held it up in front of you. And what did you tell me? You laughed out loud.
I said, Tony, have you not cracked that bottle? I make bourbon 24 hours a day. You can drink it. We'll make more.
I know. And I was like, I want to keep it on the shelf behind me. First of all, it is gorgeous. And you're also infusing honey. That's why it's known as honeydew.
Correct.
Right? And it's labeled on the side, bottle number, release date, and so on and so forth. So very excited to chat with you today. Maybe I'll have to get that second bottle so I can tap into this one and enjoy it, right?
Well, bourbon is meant to be enjoyed.
Nancy, tell us, for those, look, you guys have national distribution, so a lot of people do know about you, but for those people who maybe aren't as familiar with Garrison, tell us a little bit about the company and the brand, and then we'll get into specifically kind of this initiative that you're, working on right now.
Well, I am a mother. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a fourth generation Central Texan. I was part of a family business that was over 100 years old. So I know what it is to be part of something passionate. And in 2006, Dan Garrison and I had a crazy idea. And believe me, it was a crazy idea to open a bourbon distillery in Texas. And that is at a time when very few people were thinking very much about brown spirits in general. And we were the first legal distillery to make bourbon in Texas, and we were the first to make authentic handmade bourbon outside of the state of Kentucky. And that was a goal to make the best tasting, highest quality bourbon in the world. And when you decide to put that in your mission statement, there's just not a lot of places to go other than every day.
Not a lot of
There's
wiggle
not
room.
a lot of wiggle
Right.
room. There's just no place other than that you're going to every day try to make better bourbon than you did the day before. And that has been our mission. We only make bourbon whiskey in a little town called High, Texas. And that is right in the heart of Central Texas in the beautiful Texas Hill Country.
Now, but you went to Wake Forest. So how did you end up in North Carolina? Then you went back to University of Texas. You
did.
Course corrected, but
I had a moment of lapse, not to take anything away from the Demon Deacons and the great school of Wake Forest. But, I think when you come from family businesses, my children right now are on their paths, on their journeys. They are both grown and pursuing their passions. And I think when you come from family businesses, very often, you want to keep charting your path forward. So I went to Wake Forest for 2 years, but I came back pretty damn quick and graduated from the University of Texas, as did my mother, as did her mother, as did my daughter who attended who attended the University of Texas. So we've got a long history of Longhorns in our family.
Well, I love that you kept it in your LinkedIn profile. So I love that you were very honest about it. You weren't trying to hide it.
No. It's
out there.
I loved being at Wake. It was an incredible experience. It's always great to have a chance to get out of your home state and experience beautiful North Carolina. I had a great 2 years, but I was eager to get back home. I'm a Texan through and through, and I do bleed orange, I have to say.
Well, and I will say that the branding that you have for this honeydew line in all your lines, okay, all of the different products, they definitely have that Texas kind of feel to them, kind of that bigger than life kind of style. But what I'm curious about is you now have decided that you want to help introduce a brand for women. So what was the inspiration really for the honeydew line?
So I think that in the spirit space, women in particular very often have been sort of led to believe that they can only drink certain spirits, or that, there are certain spirits that are just for them. And the reality is there's an amazing collection of incredible spirits out in the big wide world today. And bourbon is certainly one. Whiskey is the big giant umbrella category. Bourbon is a particular whiskey. And bourbon is the American whiskey. So it can only be called bourbon whiskey if it is made in America. And it is the highest regulated spirit in the whiskey category. It has to be aged in a new oak barrel. It has to be have corn in its mash bill. So its recipe. So a lot of women, I think, have known a few handful of bourbons that were on the shelves before we introduced Garrison Brothers. And I think that, like many, their father may have had a bourbon on their shelf, their grandfather, but they really didn't have an opportunity to be empowered to embrace the spirit. And that's what I'm all about, is telling women it's on your bar. Let's go talk about it. Let's experience what bourbon can be, because it is an amazing, rich, complex spirit.
That's a great segue into what I really want to get into just for a moment, is for the foodies. I have so many that listen. And so tell us a little bit, like, what would the maybe flavor profiles be here that might be a little different than, say, a traditional bourbon? And maybe there are a few different, cocktails or kind of pairings, things like that you might imagine this would be, suited for.
Sure. I think that first and foremost, I came as a woman who loves to be in the kitchen. So ingredients were the very first thing that we really looked at closely. All of our grains, the recipe we use, that's called the mash bill. All of those grains are food grade, gourmet. What you're putting on your kitchen table is what I am putting in this bourbon. And so we are a 74% corn, 15% soft bread winter wheat, and 11% malted barley. That is our mash bill. That is our recipe. And with that, comes an incredible flavor profile because we don't cut any corners.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is honeydew. So I'm just kind of curious, how do you go about that infusion of honey? And you did mention something about the, aging in the new oak barrels. You want to touch on that too? And
sure. So one thing to remember, as I said, bourbon being such a regulated spirit, we have to use that new oak barrel, and all of the flavor and coloring that you're seeing in a bourbon whiskey is coming from the properties of that barrel. All those sugars that are in the wood. So honeydew was a labor of love because at Garrison Brothers, we only make bourbon whiskey. And there are a lot of products out on the market that are just a whiskey. But at Garrison Brothers, we only do bourbon. So as Dan did not particularly have a passion for honeydew and may have said along the way that was not what he wanted to be putting in his rainbow collection of bourbons, I knew that we had an audience for this. And I knew that we were going to make this bourbon. And so I went around him and went to Donis Todd, our master distiller, and said, Donis, we're going to make a bourbon. And Donis, being the very smart man that he is, knew that ultimately at the end of the day, that if I said I was going to have this bourbon in our collection, we're going to have this bourbon in our collection. By the way, it beats our small batch bourbon, which is our original bourbon. That is Dan's bourbon. It beats it many days of the week. So I knew that we had something.
You nailed it.
And we nailed it. Yeah. Very proud. It really exceeded all my expectations for what this spirit could be.
Well, and I think is a play on words too. I mean, the honeydew.
It is.
It is. It's like you're being told you can't do it. Wait a minute. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to call it the honeydew.
Yep. You've got it. The great thing about being co-founder of a distillery is that, you have a lot of opportunity to have your voice be heard. So, and I'm very proud of that. But you asked a little bit about the flavor of this. And what's interesting is that I grew up in Central Texas, as I said, and this is a collaboration also with Burleson's Texas Wildflower Honey. And I grew up with Burleson's honey on my kitchen table as a child. And very often flavors in spirits take us back to those wonderful memories. So that little touch of honey, that sweetness, that also is coming from the grains that we're using, that wheat and the corn, the sweet honey notes that come off of the wood of the barrel. So we began to really look at how we wanted to continue to enhance what we were doing. There's not any reason to fight against it. We're trying to increase that flavor profile, to move it forward. And for Garrison Brothers, really, we are very proud to keep pushing that envelope forward for different experiences that people can have with bourbon whiskey. Well, the heat actually plays an incredibly important role in how bourbon is given all of that incredible flavor and color. So as that distillate is when that distillate is put into the barrel, it is actually clear. And then as it interacts with the wood, that is what is giving that flavor and color, that when you hold up that bottle of honeydew, you see that beautiful caramel rich color of the distillate. Well, the heat in Texas is really harsh. That distillate works hard in the barrels in high Texas because it is moving in and out of the wood as that temperature fluctuates, which in central Texas can easily be a 30-degree temperature swing. So beautiful, cool mornings and hot summer days and hot summer afternoons. And that distillate is working. It's moving in and out of the wood. It is trying to push its way out of the wood, and then it gets and moves itself back into the barrel. Hence, a 4-year-old Texas bourbon is very comparable to many other bourbons that are older from other parts of the country, because in other parts of the country, it stays a very constant temperature many months out of the year. So it's a very it's a beautiful thing because we are able to get this gorgeous, rich bourbon flavor in a lot shorter time period. We have a ton of evaporation, though, in the process because the angel share, which anybody who's familiar with bourbon, that is that evaporation rate. And so we have a very high evaporation rate, which means the bourbon coming out of the barrels when we are getting ready to bottle it is really concentrated and yummy.
So like how much do you lose out of that, out of a barrel? So a barrel?
High percent.
So, okay, a lot.
A high percent.
So it's very concentrated.
It is. It is. I had a cask strength bourbon this year, which is our cowboy bourbon. It is a very coveted limited release, and it was 134.8 proof. So when I say we do high proof bourbons at Garrison Brothers Distillery, I'm not joking around.
Yeah, I think if we have a live stream, we're going to have to maybe clear the decks for the rest of the day, right?
Not a bad idea.
Late on a Friday. So are there any particular cocktails or favorite pairings that you like to use, or are you just straight up over rocks?
Well, if anybody knows me, they know that, yes, I like a cocktail. And I do think, honestly, in the classics, an old fashioned is my typical go-to. This bourbon also lends itself really nicely to a little bit of a citrus note. So I sometimes might do a little splash of lemon juice, a little splash of soda. But I have to be honest, Tony, I am a honeydew neat gal. Yes, I like to enjoy it straight out of the barrel. Out of the bottle. Out of the barrel. I was going to say, wow.
Wow.
That also. But I really do enjoy it right from the bottle, neat. I just find the amazing flavor that is coming. That 80 proof spirit is just so approachable, very easy to understand. And again, an addition to that collection of spirits that we have, because at Garrison Brothers, we do a fairly high proof collection of bourbons. And that is really one of the reasons this came about. It is hot in Texas all the time.
Yeah, it is 80 proof. It's 80
so
proof.
We took we took that proof down with rainwater that we collect at the ranch, Tony, and proofed it down to 80. And again, just to give that opportunity to really have something that could be easily enjoyed on one of the hot Texas days.
Yeah, I'm imagining a sweltering day. You would probably just like a nice big chunk of ice with that.
Yep, exactly.
Right. So here we are. We're the food and beverage industry, very competitive, different categories that you're competing against, trying to get your brand on shelf, keep it on shelf, attract women, attract your demographics. So put on your marketing hat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For other brands that are out there that are trying to vie for, female consumers, how are you approaching this marketplace? What kind of conversations are you having with distributors and buyers, and so on?
Well, the first conversation that I have is I really enjoy having that conversation directly with women. So that is one of my goals, is really to start that conversation in person with women all over the country. And part of that is empowering women to really enjoy the spirit with kind of all of your senses in play. So I talk a lot about nosing your bourbon and do a little education, a little 101 on how to begin to look at this spirit. Again, for many women, they've seen this on their bar and they also have not cracked that bottle. So I say, let's look at it. Let's understand what it is. Bourbon has a very simple mash bill, a very simple recipe. And it can either be flavored with a wheat, which is what we do at Garrison Brothers, or it could be flavored with a rye. And those grains, a rye grain being a much spicier note, but we always liked a little bit sweeter profile. So again, we are, as I said, a 74% corn, 15% soft red winter wheat, 11% malted barley. And that gives automatically a way for a consumer to understand what that spirit is. And then I talk about mouthing and really chewing your bourbon. And again, that's where you put that little bit on your the tip of your tongue. You let that melt away, almost like an M&M would in your mouth. And basically, you're letting your mouth start to do its work, starting to break that spirit down. So as you're taking your first sip and your second sip, your palate is ready to understand what a high proof bourbon is. And I promise any woman who walks through those steps with me and really lets that spirit be a part of the full experience, every time I get, oh, wow, I can't believe I'm having a sip of bourbon. And it's really fun.
It does sound like that would be a lot of fun to take people through that journey and that kind of that initial exploration to kind of be there with them. Like, this is what you're experiencing.
Well, many women I talk to are high powered. I mean, they are running companies. They are running their family. As we know, women have many balls that they juggle, and their paths are never straight and narrow. They are twisting and turning and stepping forward and stepping back. But ultimately, they all have a tremendous amount of responsibility in their world. And to empower these women to take on a spirit that they thought was not for them is really something special.
Well, so you said that you're going and talking to women first. So how is that happening? I mean, what's your marketing strategy around that? I mean, are you doing like barnstorming tours around the country? I mean, literally, I'm curious how, practically speaking.
So anybody can sort of find me on social media and on our website, but I do dinners. So I was, for example, at a dinner in LA and had an incredible group of women who joined me. Most were in the media world because that's what LA is all about. But many were, again, leaders in their field. I had the same opportunity to do a dinner at the Masters for a group of women that were all involved in the PGA, either within the PGA organization or golf in general, because as we know, the Masters really does pull together the best of the best. And again, these were women who all said to me, I certainly know what bourbon is. I know that it's out there, but it's really not my go-to. And it's rare that I leave a dinner where women aren't just pretty excited about the opportunity to go find a bottle and start telling their friends about it. So, again, it's a lot of fun.
So do you think that the dinners then kind of spawn other conversations from those women to other women? Is that sort of
I think so, because I think that
pollination?
Women really like to support each other. We're in a time in our lives where I think that we really want to build each other up. And I think that opportunity for women to then talk to other women, give it as a gift to a coworker, just start the conversation. And again, for me, it's about showing that as a woman, you can pioneer and follow a passion no matter what that path is, and that there are always going to be obstacles, but we're going to keep breaking those down along the way and sharing our experiences together to create a richer time for all of us. It's been an incredible journey, Tony. I certainly didn't think that this was the path, because again, I think as women, you don't know quite what that path is going to be, but to be a part of really breaking down some of those barriers and to pioneer being the first distillery outside of Kentucky. I mean, again, you're making bourbon in Texas, really? I mean,
I know.
I mean, people are like, wait, first of all, can you even do that? Well,
Is it legal?
And we asked the question. We actually asked that question to what was then the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division, and said, "Is this possible?" And they were like, "Well, of course you can. You guys know your history. In 1964, Lyndon Baines Johnson put into law that bourbon was the spirit of the United States of America. Anybody can make bourbon whiskey in the United States of America with a lot of federal permits and paperwork."
Yeah, you have a natural moat around your product, I would say, for sure. So did the PR firm then play a role in kind of helping you create these dinners and kind of stay out in front of people?
Yes, there's always a great marketing team behind any strong brand, but we have a couple really interesting things that are part, maybe and somewhat unique to our distillery. We have almost a cult-like following. People are just crazy about what's going on at Garrison Brothers. I just did a brand new release. So Honeydew Bourbon that we've been talking about, she now has an older sister. So with the success of Honeydew, we wanted to push that again a little bit further. And we literally last weekend released our newest bourbon, and it's called Ladybird, a tribute to Lady Bird Johnson, President Johnson's beautiful wife, who all of us know was instrumental in introducing us to what conservation is and what beautification is. And we wanted to respect and honor her legacy with a bourbon named Ladybird that is a 4-year-old honeydew bourbon that we then take 3 more years and mature in a French XO cognac cask. So it is an incredibly interesting spirit. And I had people lined up for miles to come get this bourbon. And there is no PR agency in the world that can create that kind of energy for a spirit. We sold over 1,000 bottles in just over 3 hours. And I literally talked to every single person at the distillery who came for that release. It is insanity. These people are crazy, but they are passionate about our bourbon.
Good crazy.
Yes,
good crazy.
All in a very good way.
Well, you also being so connected with your community, are there any other, community initiatives or like foundations that you're currently working with as part of, your giving programs, et cetera?
We do. So Dan and I realized early on that bourbon is a special spirit. Bourbon brings people together. And good people want to do good things. So we actually put right on the back of that bottle that you have in your hand, good bourbon can change the world. And we really believe that as bourbon brings people together in conversation, those good people want to do good things. So we actually founded a public charity called Good Bourbon for a Good Cause. And that gives us the opportunity to give back. We not only do that through veterans causes, so our support of the Nimitz Museum, which is in Fredericksburg, Texas, our community that's just one town over from us, from High, Texas, or on the bottle of Ladybird, we're giving $5 back to the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center for every bottle sold. And I was a part of the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center Council for over 10 years. So I've had a long passion and history with what we are now able to move forward and really show again that respect for what the Wildflower Center is doing and what Lady Bird Johnson did for all of us in the United States through her passion, through my passion.
It's interesting too, because you're even drawing attention to honeybees.
We are. So those honeybees are so important for our ecosystem. And the opportunity to work with Burleson's honey, which is the oldest honey manufacturer in the state of Texas. They've been around since the early 1900s as a family business. And I knew collaborating with them coming from a family business, that they would have that same values and standards and morals and ethics that I wanted to support. So we are delighted to be working with them and supporting our honeybees and our honey producers. There are not enough women beekeepers out there in today, and I am on a hunt.
Are you on a hunt to find some?
I am on a hunt to find a what I know will be a very cool woman beekeeper.
Well, there you have it, folks. We have to do our work. I think, what would be a lot of fun too, Nancy, is that if we did a live stream at some point and talk to one of these beekeepers.
Oh, Tony, that would be so cool.
I would love to.
I would love
just sit there and learn from them and do that. And of course, with your product there too, partnering with that, I think that could be kind of a fun conversation, because we all need to kind of raise our awareness. Here we are in the South, and I'll just say this is kind of that time when mosquitoes start coming around and everyone wants to spray. And that's the last thing you want to do. You do not want to put more chemicals out. So we just need to raise more awareness. Like if you have mosquitoes, you need to find other ways.
You do. And there are so many ways that we need to just always keep protecting our ecosystem and our environment. At Garrison Brothers, like I said, we collect all of rainwater off of all of the roofs that we have on the distillery property, because we know that everything is fragile, and we need to do our part to really ensure that, water is a part of making bourbon whiskey. But we want to be sure that we are really respecting and trying to do our part to conserve as best we can. All of our mash, the slop that comes off of our stills, we actually feed to the ranchers in our community, and they come by with big trucks and pick that up on a regular basis.
Did you say slop?
Yep. That's the mash that comes off the still once we have barreled that distillate. So all that grain,
you've got everybody coming to your distillery for all these different reasons.
We do. And also a good cocktail, by the way. Since I'm not going to be making too many cocktails, please come by our whiskey shack and I'll share a cocktail with you.
I tell you, I wish there was more of this where I'm at. I'm in the middle of nowhere out here in North Carolina. So now I've got another town I've got to go visit over there in High Texas. Nancy, what's the best way for people to discover the brand? Where are you online? I know you mentioned you've got kind of a social presence. Do you have socials out there too? What's the best way?
I do. So, at garrisonbros.com, that is our website. Always a great wealth of information. Not only do we talk about the rainbow collection of bourbons, we have beautiful wax colors. That gorgeous marigold yellow that you're looking at on the honeydew bottle. But every bourbon expression that we have has a different color wax. And every bourbon expression is a different proof. And you can really learn about those bourbons online on our website. I also have an Insta presence, Queen Bee Garrison.
Queen Bee Garrison, nice. We'll link that in the show notes.
Yep, on Instagram. So, but and then there are all kinds of people that are posting stuff about Garrison Brothers all the time. So, we're pretty easy to find out there.
Well, and I love too that on the front of the bottle, if you open it up, it talks. Well, by the way, this is an audio podcast, but I showed it on the live stream. You open up the box and it's this beautiful golden rich honeycomb on the inside of the box. I mean, I just love that little, that was so clever. And then the tag on the front is the shape of a honeycomb.
Yep.
And you open it up and there's a little QR code in there too. So you can kind of scan that.
So
but
our
as you
marketing,
can see, I know no one's seen that. I've not opened it. I can't open it. It's too.
Tony, we're going to have to get you to open that bottle. But
they're going to think this is like a ploy for me to get more, right?
Well, we do all of our marketing in-house. And Rob Cordes is a long-time friend and has worked with Dan in previous lives on other projects. But when he heard we were doing this and we were going to open a bourbon distillery, he said, I am in. And all of that beautiful artwork is hand done on that bottle. And he is behind all of the amazing design at Garrison Brothers. And again, each bottle is unique. Each bottle has a little story, because again, all of us have our stories to share. It's why I love being with women across the country, because they're able to share their stories with me, and I can share a little bit with them.
This has been fantastic, and I can already see more conversations for us to have in the future. The first one, though, is you need to find this female beekeeper, and it would be even, I don't know, maybe Burleson's has one. I don't know.
Well, I don't know either, and we're going to find her, and maybe we'll just find her together, Tony, because you've got an incredible audience out there.
We're going to look. We're going to find her.
And I'm a foodie at heart, so I can't imagine that we couldn't come together and do something really cool in another conversation.
I think that would be great. Well, I've had such a blast getting to know more about the brand and how you're trying to bring in women and include them in a category that they can now realize, right? There's a lot there to offer for them. Nancy, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely.
On Winning at Work.
Tony, thank you for the opportunity. I am honored to be here, and for everyone out listening, thank you for giving me a few minutes to share my story.
Oh, you're so welcome. We'll talk to you soon on that live stream with bees.
Great. Thanks, Tony.